Welcome back to episode 16 of the Michigan Outdoors podcast. As always, I'm Tyler Mihai alongside a solo Steve Wyndham today.
No, Justin.
We've got a very special guest for you today, though. Joining us is Brian Kozminski, the owner of True North Trout, a dedicated river activist, an avid fly angler, and a board member of Friends on the Boyne River. Brian's commitment to preserving our waterways and his expertise in fly fishing makes him a true steward of the environment and a source of inspiration for many. He's also a lifetime member of Trout Unlimited, further showcasing his dedication to the conservation of cold water fisheries. So grab your gear, settle in, and get ready for an engaging conversation with one of the leading voices in the fly fishing community. And the Michigan Outdoors podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and a video edition on YouTube, and not on YouTube Music because I made sure to look at the sheet before I talked today.
You caught that script.
I caught it last time. And if you're not already, follow us on Instagram as well at Michigan Out of Doors Pod. And the Michigan Outdoors podcast is proud to partner with Onyx Hunt. Join the millions of hunters who trust Onyx Hunt to help them fill their freezers. Create hunt strategies for your property with custom waypoints, view wind forecasts for individual stand sites, integrate with cell cameras, and so much more. Onyx is essential for hunters to understand property lines, find an e-scout public land and other hunting spots, and all the other tools to give yourself the best possible chance at a successful hunt. All current MUCC members are eligible for a 1-month free trial of Onyx Elite and an additional 20% off your annual membership. New MUCC members will get a free 3-month trial of Onyx Elite in their welcome email when signing up. To find your current membership discounts, log into your MUCC member portal and click on membership discounts link to see all of the benefits of being an MUCC member. Join MUCC today to take advantage of these offers. We are back, episode 16. Steve, how you doing?
Doing good. Kaz, how are you doing, my man?
We're absolutely fabulous. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Do you use YouTube Music at all?
Yes. Sorry.
Do you use the actual YouTube Music app or do you just use YouTube?
Both. I have the app on my phone.
We have an ongoing debate here in the office on whether or not we should have the podcast on YouTube Music or just on YouTube. So you're adding to the YouTube Music tally. So thank you very much.
Well, it's nice that you have it on YouTube. Just whenever I'm tying flies or whatever, I'll have the YouTube in the background and just it cycles through whatever it wants, from fly tying videos to you guys, or obviously MeatEater or Joe Rogan. Who knows what's going to pop up,
Love it.
I do want it known too that Mark Kenyon was not a YouTube Music listener.
Yeah. Well, we still have a winning YouTube Music tally though.
We'll see. All right. Well, Justin's not here, but we'll do our best to quickly cover policy and try not to get yelled at too much when he's gone or when he comes back. We had an NRC meeting last Thursday. Unfortunately,
April 10th.
The biggest thing that we were pushing was the reopening of the illegally partially closed coyote season. Unfortunately, the NRC voted to table that amendment. They did not have all of the commissioners there, so without a full vote, they voted to table it. It would next be up for action at May.
Yep.
We'll see if it does get voted on there, or if it continues to get tabled and kicked down the road.
We'll see. We do have a call to action. So if you have a voice in this game, or you have any semblance of science-based management of our natural resources, you can reach out to the NRC and share your story, share your voice. We are asking members in the general public to let the NRC know about our opinions and our voices to reopen the season to year round. So if you haven't taken action yet, there's still lots of time to send an email, make a phone call, be respectful and polite, but get to the point and let them know how you feel about the closure.
Yeah, and a quick thank you. We posted a few videos the week of the NRC meeting, and we put a call to action there to reach out to the NRC. And because of you guys, we were able to send over 250 emails to the NRC voicing our opinions on coyotes. So again, just another reason to join MUCC. Our voice is significantly louder when we're unified together.
So stay tuned for updates on that one.
Yep. So the coyote opening has been tabled. There was no vote for action on that.
So that means it will close on the
16th
after this. So after this drops, you will be listening to us during the closure.
Yep.
So be aware that the closure does still stand as of now.
So one of the other amendments up for action was to increase the number of dogs during bear hunting from 8 to 10 during the training period. That amendment did fail, I believe, 4-3. And then the other amendment up for action was to set regulations for the 2025-2026 migratory game bird seasons and managed waterfall area regulations. The main change there was just aligning southern zone dates to be a little bit more aligned with the other zones. And they're going to open a little bit later per the request of Michigan hunters. So
so the South Zone does have a later than normal opening, but that'll be in the digest.
Yep.
And when those dates are released, we'll update you as well.
And that was passed unanimously. And the legislature is going to be back working, I believe, this week.
Yep, they are on spring break until mid-April. So by the time this drops, they'll be back in and working again for us.
And without Justin here, that's short and sweet.
It is short and sweet. Big shout out to the legislators that were at our Camo and Conservation event in Byron Center. Blanking on the names right now, but that was over on the west side last weekend as of recording. We did have a few legislators there, as well as the sheriff and some DNR COs. So thank you to everybody that came out to that great event. And we like to see those people at our events to get to know us. So thanks for coming.
Kaz, do you have anything to add to NRC or policy?
You guys are doing good work. I appreciate keeping up on everything that you guys keep us up on. There's a lot of important decisions that are going on, and we've been, especially the past 5 years, watching, the steelhead regulations and the coyote, bear, everything. The issues everybody has in the UP with the sandhill cranes, and I think enough people show up and show their voices. I watched last Thursday, and Justin does a great job. So keep it up.
Awesome. Well, we will. We'll keep fighting.
And now a message from our sponsor, the American Forest Foundation.
Your land is your legacy, but keeping it healthy and thriving means caring for it now and in the future. The Family Forest Carbon Program can help you do right by your land with guaranteed income, help developing a forest management plan, and advice from experts. If you own 30 acres or more of forest land in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota, you may be eligible to enroll in the Family Forest Carbon Program. Visit familyforestcarbon.org and enroll today.
All right, and visit familyforestcarbon.com to see if you qualify for the Family Forest Carbon Program, and thank you to the American Forest Foundation for their partnership. All right, Kaz, you are here. Let's get a little bit into your background.
Let's stop and tell me about purple paint.
Okay.
So Michigan, not a purple paint state.
I don't know. And when I go driving, the pine forest on the CCC, I see 3 blues or 2 reds or 1 yellow hash mark. I've always wanted to know what those delineations mean for the forest department, but I never knew anything about purple paint.
I can't speak to the forestry management piece on those colors, but purple paint is a substitution for posted signs on private land. And so it's another opportunity that's less expensive and less maintenance for landowners to be able to paint purple paint on trees or fence posts or areas where they're visible for those who are trekking around out there. And it's basically a private land boundary, the same way we have yellow posted signs. Purple paint is an opportunity to market posted without having to have the physical signs on the trees or fence posts or what it would be.
And it's obviously not as ugly. And but to be honest, I'm naive in that area because I don't go hunting, or the only time I'm in the woods is looking for mushrooms, or if Alan drags me along to go chase birds with a dog. I never knew anything about the purple, and this is something that we need to get out to a bigger market. Mostly the anglers are the guys that don't carry a gun and go walking in the woods.
Yeah, so if you do see that, you are approaching a private land boundary. So those purple paint markers are telling you that you're about to step off of public or step off of a managed area and into a private land. So keep an eye.
My Onyx app should tell me that before I step over there.
Onyx does, yes, that is true. But I've always heard a disclaimer that it's not perfect, but I trust mine pretty truthfully.
Yeah.
I've found maybe like a 2 or 3 foot, disparity, but it's not huge. It's pretty nuts on, right?
Yeah. And that might be a limitation on the zoom, how far they can zoom in. So while you might be right there on the line, if you can't zoom in close enough, it doesn't give you the minutia and the details sometimes.
And anecdotally, the COs that I've talked to, if you can show them that you're on Onyx and you're saying, look, I'm in this boundary, I'm not in the private land. I think as long as they, again, anecdotally, this is not, don't follow this to a T, but for the most part, I think if you can show, hey, I'm following GPS, I think most of the time, as long as it's not directly marked, they will allow your GPS.
Very cool. Good to know.
But I did a quick little Google search. It looks like blue paint is commonly used to mark property boundaries between landowners, and yellow may indicate trees to be left as part of a leave tree strategy, meaning they will not be harvested.
Nice job.
So that's what Dr. Google told me.
Nice.
Awesome. So Kaz, let's jump into you, man. I know, in the intro, we had you listed as the owner of True North Trout. All the great things you're up to, just kind of take us back. Where did you grow up and how did you get into fishing and when did it kind of divert into a fly fishing obsession? And, take us from the beginning on what got you so passionate about this great sport.
Sure. I mean, obviously it all started as a kid fishing with dad or grandpa, both sometimes. I grew up on the west side, Grand Rapids. So I know a lot of that area. I grew up as a I went to City High and then I transferred over to Kanawha Hills. I became that nerdy biology kid. There was an after school bug class that we had in one of our biology classes. So that's when I first got introduced to doing stream sampling and doing a lot of bug study. So I took macroinvertebrates at Grand Valley State and then took it again up here at NCMC. I've always been an outdoor nature nerd. My stepfather in Grand Rapids was on the Basscasters for the Grand Rapids area. He was president for a while. So I did a lot of the father-son tournaments, Mona Lake, Muskegon Lake, throwing the pig and jig and spinner baits and all that stuff. But my dad's from Boyne Falls, and when he remarried, his wife was from Grayling. So I got to do a lot of weekend trips to go see family when I was 12 and 13 fishing the Asable. And it was cool because there's a section behind the hospital back then that was for youth fishing only. Adults couldn't fish in there. And you would...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could wade in there and catch 12, 13-inch brook trout, a few browns. A few would escape from the hatchery every once in a while, but that's another story. So that was kind of like my early introduction, bass fishing. Not that it was boring to me. I just liked when my dad, we fished for Johnson Park used to have a old trout pond back there before they built Millennium Park. And we went trout fishing at one of the trout ponds. And first thing I did after that, I went home and tried to tie the best pellet fly. I think I stole some of mom's pantyhose and wrapped it up and threw some deer hair in there. And we made our best pellet fly to go back. But it's fun when you craft something on a hook and you get creative and you can do whatever you want and go out and actually fish a river and find a wild trout or native or naturalized, whatever you want to call it. It's just a next level kind of thing to do. In my 20s, I worked at the Peninsula Club downtown, parking cars and bartending at Flanagan's, and then a few other restaurants. I worked at, I can't even tell. There's Rags to Riches, which is no longer around. The Sierra Room, I was a bartender. And
what's your favorite drink to make?
I quit.
Or what's the one you hate making? Like you made so many times, you're just like, I hate making this drink.
I am just not a fan of anything dirty olive martini. I hated stuffing blue cheese into olives. Both of those things kind of repulse me, and the oiliness and the olive, not a cool thing. But the high maintenance drinks of like a Four Horsemen coffee drink where you have to burn a lot of liquor and then caramelize the rim, blah, 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 blah. It's all about the flash and doing the show. But once you do one of them, all of a sudden everybody else sees it and you're making 20 of them. So
yeah.
Try to stay away from that. But I met my wife. She was administrative assistant for a lawyer in Grand Rapids, and she would walk by I was at Sierra Room. She'd walk by, and I had the courage to jump out one day and ask her to come in and have a drink. She did. We bought a house.
There you go.
We had a baby. We moved up north because she's from up here. We moved to Petoskey first, and then we later on bought a house in Boyne City, and we live in Boyne City, which is I have a 20-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old daughter. My 20-year-old's at state, go green. And
Go white.
Yeah, and my other little girl is a super little buggy nerd. She likes to get in the river and catch crayfish and turn over rocks and find bugs. She's just a nature lover, so it's cool that we have all these things.
Are you gonna help start the Boyne City High School Bug Club like you were in as a kid? You gonna have her have a cool club after school?
So what we actually do is the salmon in the classroom, and we've got salmon release coming up in 2 weeks. They usually start the first week in May through May 5th through the 15th. I'll be doing the salmon release at Boyne and Petoskey. Boyne, as part of their millage a few years ago, they expanded their science department and added a new gym facility. They put in a 100-gallon tank right at the entrance, and that's where they raise the salmon. So everybody comes in, they see the salmon, they get all crazy, they love it. Everybody's attached. Here's where we live. We're in northern Michigan, where within a 2-mile walk, you're on the river. The Boyne is right behind the high school, and these kids they raise the salmon, and we bring them down and let them go. And so I'll have a table down there, and I'll get a few bugs and macroinvertebrates, show them what lives in the river, and we talk about watersheds and river conservation and why it's important that we have a cold water resource right out our back door that we need to take care of and preserve and treasure. Otherwise, if we don't take care of it, who's going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great message for that next generation. Do they name the salmon in the tank, or?
So one of the classes up in Petoskey, they have an art class. It's like an advanced art class, and they keep a journal, and each kid they draw a picture of the fish every day when they come in, and they do often name the fish, and then they watch, when they lose their yolk sac, and then they develop the par marks, and they start growing. So there's definitely an attachment, and these guys, it's such a cool thing to see. I wish they would have had that when I was in high school. It would have definitely turned us into a different conservation path, or got us on our path at a much earlier start. We have to take our bumps and bruises and realize we're going to be where we are today by learn and default.
That's awesome. And so is your youngest a big angler as well? Likes to toss flies around?
So not yet.
Okay.
You were a jet.
My older daughter felt like maybe I pressured her into too much of that stuff when she was younger. So there was a little bit of resentment towards dad. And, but now she went to school and she came home, and the first thing she did last year, she went out and bought a fishing license, and she grabbed my paddleboard and my rods, and she was on Deer Lake or Lake Charlevoix catching bass and absolutely loving it. So I think, we instill these things in our kids at a younger age. Sometimes you have to sit back and let that germinate and grow into something. We can't be too forceful on making it happen. And I realize that, and now she wants to come home from school and she wants to go fishing with me. Let's go do a night trip. Let's do a camping trip on the Manistee, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So I'm letting my little girl get to the point where she's like, hey, Dad, let's go hit the river. So it'll happen all in her own time. I'm just trying to let it be organic.
I've taken a lot of advice from, fathers that are a little farther down the line than I have, and really taken to heart the idea of not pushing too much of this. I have 2 boys who are 14 and 12 and an 8-year-old girl. And it seems like, you got to find that balance, let them naturally gravitate towards it. My daughter, though, she is a turkey fiend. We're counting down to turkey opener. She just wants to go shoot one. But the boys, I have to, I think, play a little nicer with them and invite them, but not force them, is what I've kind of learned.
Right. Totally. We went down to the cabin this weekend, and I must have drove past 100 deer on Fletcher Road and at least 3 dozen turkeys everywhere. Everybody's fanning out.
Yeah.
They're getting ready. They're strutting their stuff. It should be. It should be a good year.
We'll be out there next week.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah. So then relocated to Boyne, had the kids, and then when did True North Trout start? When did you get into the idea of jumping in on your own, or do you still have a day job, or how did it all come about to have this great guiding service?
Yes, always have a day job. I've always been either working in the restaurant or hospitality industry, just because it's flexible with my schedule. I can still do trips. I can make money. I also make connections for people that want to go on the river. In the wintertime, I do a lot of the rafting on the Jordan Valley or on the Jordan River with Jordan Valley Outfitters, which is just absolutely spectacular to float the river in the middle of a snowstorm. If you haven't seen pictures, it's something you need to do and check out. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
The pictures you post, man, every time you post one of those winter floats,
Yep.
just with the snow, and it looks so serene. And it's something I got to add to my list to do one of these winters coming up real soon.
'Cause I think you and Alan went out not that long ago during a snowstorm and got a float trip in, which looked amazing.
We did an overnight camping trip on a section that we love, and we all hold dear. And it's just awesome to be, you know, the whole embrace the suck you have when you don't have them, and you're actually going into the woods, getting wood to make a fire, starting it out, grilling, and nothing's warming up because it's only 6 degrees outside, you know. But you never feel alive if you don't push yourself to your life can either be a whole bunch of 4s and 5s, or give it a couple 1s and 2s and 9s and 10s. You got to go top and bottom.
Well, I know you're big into embracing the suck too, because I've read both of Alan's books now, and you're obviously mentioned a fair amount in these trips and adventures. So, you know, I've read a lot about you embracing the suck, but it's going to be cool to hear that firsthand as well.
Well, it's kind of, and we'll jump back on that, how we all met as a group of guys. It's funny how we're in very similar places in our lives, all coming from different backgrounds. And we get together. We've got trout opener coming up in 2 weeks, and we can't wait to get together for that weekend. And it's just like, we never missed a day. We're right back there. And it was just like yesterday we were together, and we have a lot of really good memories, and we just get along really well because we're all in the same boat, taking care of the conservation resource, everything that we need to worry about. We're all on the same page, which is cool. But jumping back to True North Trout, I started my own fly fishing guide service, and it was like Chasing Tail. It was some stupid name that people were like, you shouldn't do that. And that was
double meaning there.
Yeah, exactly. And that spawned from when I used to be a limo driver in Grand Rapids and working in the restaurants and the bars. I could make it like a 3-tiered, you'll take you fishing and take you to the bars and take you out. I could cover all the aspects, right? But then I moved up north, and a mentor, I was at a Leadership Little Traverse. It was like it's a growth group that they pick certain people out of different industries so that we kind of represent the community. And they're like, you should probably change that name. I didn't at the time, but I was also very involved with donating trips. I was president for the TU chapter for Miller Van Winkle, and I would take out like the chamber director or somebody from another organization, and I was donating trips to groups like the Women's Resource Center or Father Fred Foundation. I was donating trips to groups that weren't normal outdoor people. And I did that in a way on purpose, because I think when we go to a Trout Unlimited banquet, there's 10 or 15 guide trips there. You know, those people in the Trout Unlimited world, they already know about what we do for conservation and why our rivers are important. We need to do a little outreach to these other groups that don't really know about the river and the river that's in the backyard. So I've been focusing more on groups that don't have a direct connection to the resource and trying to open up that horizon. So it made a lot of sense to me, and I've had a lot of good follow up with that. I do a lot of regular work with the Shrems chapter in Grand Rapids because they're my alma mater, and Kalamazoo chapter, they're kicking it.
Go Broncos.
Yeah, they're unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And then the Adams chapter is right next to me. The Mason Griffith and Headwaters over in Gaylord and Grayling, those guys are all doing great work for the river and for the resources. So the ones that do well on their own, they don't really need a whole lot of help. I'm trying to help the ones that really need more attention.
Yeah. And, is that a volunteer thing that they're needing, or just awareness, or they need just to keep the chapter strong and growing?
I think there's a combination of both. Every nonprofit organization right now is finding the struggle that it's hard to engage the 20 to 30 something unless you have that YouTube element or, that 30-second mind frame. You got to grab their attention quick and get them engaged. We need a combination of not just check writers. We also need rock rollers. Just like when you guys do the on the ground stuff, you can't just have people that are funding it. You need to have the people that are willing to go out and do it. I'm I'm not a millionaire or multimillionaire, so I'm not donating and writing checks, but I'm a member of a lot of different organizations, and I can't be a member of more. So I try to donate to the other organizations that I find are doing a great job, like you guys. So it's a good thing, and it's a struggle I'm seeing with a lot of nonprofits right now, because we're all struggling to try to get the same little sliver of that piece of pie, and there's only so many people that are out there. You know, the 10% that really care about the woods that we work in or live in or hunt in. We need to take care of it for the next generation, or our kids aren't going to have anything, you know?
Well, the issue you talk about too of, you know, it's hard to reach that 20 to 30 age group. I mean, that aligns perfectly with what we're seeing in fishing and hunting numbers as well. It's the same level of decline when you're looking at different demographics that, you know, I'll say 30 and below demographic is declining so quickly, and it's just so hard to recruit those individuals to get back.
Well, you know, fishing is that great bridge. I think, you know, it's not super, it's not like hunting, right? Like to take someone out hunting who's never done it, or they, you know, it's that 80% in the middle that doesn't really do it, but supports it, doesn't fight it. And to try and take someone, you know, coyote hunting or deer hunting or trapping, it can seem very kind of standoffish, but fishing is such a great entry point into the natural resources world to say, hey, we're out on the stream, we're going to toss some lines, we're going to catch these fish. I know a lot of fish are catch and release. You know, there are some limits for in some streams and things you can take fish home, but I think fishing's an awesome way to bridge that gap, like you said, especially the groups that you're working with that aren't in our world, but would really appreciate and possibly be, you know, that person who's going to vote in favor if we ever get in the battle, instead of being an anti. They're like, oh yeah, I know this guy. He took me fishing one time. It was a great day. I had an awesome time, and I support what they do, even though they might not be a lifelong angler. But fishing seems to be one of the easiest ways to get people introduced to our world and what we're up to, especially the conservation side of it.
Well, and especially a catch and release side, because there's not really catch and release when it comes to hunting.
That's true.
So if we can take out someone that doesn't necessarily want to kill or harvest, and we can just show them the experience of it, that's where fishing, in my opinion, really shines.
I agree on all that. That's, and to make a similar comparison, like put bluegills in the same bucket as like squirrel hunting. You know, you can bring home as many bluegills as you want. Are you going to put a dent in the population? Nope, they'll just make more. You know, small game, whether it's rabbits or squirrels, that's a great intro for kids to get out there. But
yeah,
you also have to look at groups like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Ducks Unlimited and how they do such a great job, A, with their banquets, B, for their conservation, C, for their stewardship and their membership. They get people that are coming in and joining and paying, because the ultimate bottom line is all their goals are the same. They want to have the best, you know, watershed or upland habitat so that they get the best production of whatever animal they're after. And there is no catch and release. So there is no debate about ethics. It's everybody's going on the same direction, right? So I think that's where we get a little bit gray and fuzzy in the Trout Unlimited world, because a lot of people think it's just the old guy smoking a pipe, drinking a bourbon, and casting casting the bamboo rod with a, you know, whatever 1942 fly. There is a lot of that, but there's the other side. And I think that's where the edgy, you know, Schultz Outfitters does a great job on the Huron River with his smallmouth program. He's created such a community down there that people, once they become involved, they want to stay involved because now they're part of the cool guys.
Yeah, they're a group I follow pretty closely, and we want to try and make a relationship with them just because of the great work they're doing. And they're in my backyard. I'm in Livonia, and they're just right there in Ypsi. And so Schultz is definitely on our list to link up with, and hopefully either get him on the pod or even just start a relationship with them as well. Yeah,
he's great. Jumping back, because we're all over the board right now. So I didn't start True North Trout until I was doing these trips and taking people out. And because I was doing salmon in the classroom with one of the schools up in Petoskey, and I would have one of our DNR biologists come and we would dissect baby coho with the classroom. She said, you know, Kaz, you might want to go get your guide license so that you don't have to worry about being, you know, I was only doing 5 or 10 trips a year. It wasn't like I was doing a whole lot, and most of them were donated anyway. But she said, just do it so that you don't have to worry about it. And a few years later, a gentleman out of Traverse City reached out to me, sent an email and said, hey, I've got this blog. It's True North Trout. I'd like to hand it over to you because you're involved with the fishing community and the outdoors and conservation and doing all the right things. And my first response was, hell to the no. I don't need, I don't want to take on a podcast or a blog, write a blog or anything like that. But to my wife's suggestion and her better sense of judgment, she said, you should do it. And it will be a good thing for you to start working on writing. And I'm not at any Alan Crater or Dave Karazinski level or status of writing. I don't plan on being, but it is good for me to write down different issues when we have something come up, like the grayling introduction or the Didymo, or, you know, it's a good resource for me to get. There's a lot of people that actually still look forward to seeing a post and actually reading something, you know, so they definitely respond and write back to me saying, hey, thanks for letting me know about this, or keep it up. So that kind of makes me feel good that does do something. So that was, I bought my first, I had an older boat, but I bought the first Adipose in Michigan in 2009. And I was doing research online. I found those guys out of Helena, Montana, and I just loved the way it had a lower profile, that whole skiff design. And floating the Jordan River, I needed to have something that had a lower profile. I did not want a high bow, and I did not want a whole lot of rocker. So that boat fit everything that I loved about it, and they did a great job for me. I'm on my second one. Seems like every 10 years I get a new boat. And I got the new one in 2019. Awesome. If you haven't been in an Adipose, they're just a great flat bottom, great storage, stability. I have some older clients that have hip and knee issues. They can get in and out of the boat without any worry, and are a very comfortable ride all day long. I think Schultz had bought one too. There's a lot of them in Michigan now. The PM, a lot of guides on the PM love them as well.
Is that the boat you brought to the Blake's event we did a couple years ago? When you were doing
gosh. Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So when you were down there with us for that event that night, I got to climb up in it. That was a really slick rig you had. So that's cool to actually, I get to say I was in it without being on the water, but hey,
yep.
We'll get on the water sooner than later. Right.
That. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, do you think also your wife wanted you to just take over True North Trout so you stop chasing tail?
Yeah.
And
no.
Get the name changed.
She knew I was pretty safe in that whole market, you know?
Yeah.
No, and she's funny too, because we have a cabin on the Manistee. We do a few canoe trips a year and kayaking. She absolutely hates the canoe. We spilled it a couple times. One time, my little girl, she's good enough to paddle her kayak all on her own, so we'll let her go ahead. But she got sideways into a sweeper, and we went past her, so we had to back up the canoe, and we got alongside her, and my wife reached over to pull her out, and as she leaned over to the left, we turned everything over. And of course, it was in the middle of the river. I mean, we could stand up, but it was one of those 90-degree days, so it felt fine. We just had a yard sale, and I had to swim downstream to find everything. So
I've been there.
Always fun.
That's awesome. So now you're doing guides every weekend. How does it work for True North Trout nowadays with your availability? Where do people book with you? How often are you running this? I know, you said you still hold the day job, but how much do you get to be on the river nowadays?
Last year I started working at Wallstrom Marine, so I'm trying to sell boats, big boats. I still have a lot of flexibility in my schedule there. I am pretty booked right now all the way through June. I'm going to take a few more dates. I've got 3 or 4 other guys that work underneath me. Not that I'm trying to build an outfitters, but maybe someday down the road, I can have a place on the river where we actually do like a bed and breakfast kind of situation. That idea has been kicked around, and I know a lot of people want to keep certain rivers secret. The reason why this river is good and special is because we don't have as much traffic as other rivers. But if somebody who doesn't care about it enough doesn't do it, somebody from some other state will come up here and do it and totally mess it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's that thought. So there's a double-edged sword to everything you do. The reason why the Asabo is so popular? Because you can drive up 75 from Detroit and your Escalade never leaves pavement when you pull into the parking lot where you drop your boat off. And when you go back to your cabin, you're still right on the main road. So the Manistee has a lot less traffic because there's a lot more 2-tracks, dirt roads, and there's zero cell service, which is a nice thing. But that's also changing thanks to COVID and all those other wonderful things.
Yeah. And what rivers do you guide on mostly?
Mostly Jordan and Manistee. Every once in a while, I'll do like a wade trip on the Black or the Pigeon, upper Sturgeon. The Sturgeon's very tight. The Sturgeon is definitely a river made for like the stealth crafts or the Smith fly rafts. You can't put a hard bottom boat in there just because going down the hill, getting back up the hill, guardrails are in the way. We are just coming off the wonderful ice apocalypse of 2025. And yeah, I talked to my guide buddy, Dakota Mack. He also does Alaska. He's over in Indian River and he does the Sturgeon and the Pigeon a lot for steelhead. He cleared most of the pigeon last week and this week. He said he tried to do the Sturgeon, but he said they're probably going to need to bring in National Guard and helicopters because there are a number of very, very large trees fallen from both sides, old willows, that kind of stuff. So it's impassable, and you can't put in at point A and expect to get out at point B and cut through a whole bunch of trees and do it in a day. It's tricky work.
Yeah, that was something I think I was, because we do an annual trip on the Asabo. We're doing the Grand this year. I've got a buddy who does the PM as well. And just, talking with them the last couple of weeks after the ice storm, it's like they're all just like, I don't know what we're going to find once we get out there, man. It's just going to be days and days and weeks of clearing just to get certain stretches open. So, while everybody doesn't have power, that's definitely something we have to be concerned about. But a lot of the outdoor community is probably worried about what's their recreation going to look like over the next year because of the damage.
100%. I don't think that Indian River has 2 different canoe kayak liveries. They're not going to be able to run on the Sturgeon for a while at all. I mean, there's a lot of work ahead of them. I could tell when I drove down to my cabin the Sunday after the storm, once I hit Mansalona, there was like a definitive line where the ice just stopped. It followed along M32 right across Elmira to Gaylord, and everything north of 32 was just snapped. All these trees halfway up, all the red pine stands are just snapped in half. When you drive up here, it's amazing the amount of destruction you're going to see. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we had a tornado come down the 96 corridor a couple years ago, and when you're driving across there, it's just wild to see everything just topped off. Like it just looks like a bomb goes off.
Right.
And I know I've seen some of the footage. It just looks like a bunch of giant toothpicks in the ground now.
Yeah. I was coming back from the airport during that tornado. I drove right through the middle of it. And like 5 minutes after I drove through that corridor on 96 through Williamston, I think 4 or 5 people died.
Yeah.
Like they were hit by trees. I was driving over down power lines. I was driving over 6-8 inch trees. That's probably the most scared I've ever been in my life.
That's
I
crazy.
actually was like, I couldn't see 10 feet in front of my car. I've never experienced that. So I can only imagine what it was like up north. And I knew we had dam issues on the Boyne River. It sounds like we might have dams everywhere else now too.
Yeah, some are man-made, some are nature-made. But
you like that segue?
Yeah, that was good. That was real good. We are at the precipice of a 40-year dam renewal license on the Boyne Hydro facility, and there's just a lot of inconsistencies with. They're under regulations for run of the river, and they'll stop the water flow, and the river dries up, and then they flood it out, and then some people accuse me of fear mongering, and I post the pictures when the river goes dry. And it turns out when I actually contact Eagle, they said, yep, there was a problem with dam function that day. I mean, we all have a responsibility as anglers, hunters, whatever. When we see something that's not normal, or if a river goes up real high, real fast, and there hasn't been rain in 24 hours, something's not right. Or if it completely dries up or even if a river goes down 2 or 3 inches in a matter of 2 hours, that's not normal. Rivers don't do that, especially up here. We've got a huge amount of snowpack that's recharging all of our groundwater. Everybody's saying, well, it's Nestle. Well, Nestle has their thing, but that's a completely different aquifer than what we have up here in the northern Sheboygan, north of Gaylord area. But we do have to,
I was just going to say, how does that licensing, or how does some of these problems get solved that you're noticing? Is it an Eagle thing? Is it working with the stakeholder, the company itself, or what can the conservationist or the Michigander do to sort of address? And you're pointing out some of these issues, and you're a great advocate for the river and for the resources. But what are the rest of us? Where can we chip in, or where does the process fall apart in your mind that these things are allowed to happen and what's going on?
The process falls apart completely because once you generate energy on a dam, it becomes federally energy regulatory committee. So FERC is in control of the dam. So Eagle DNR, they really can't do much about it if it's generating power. But then I propose the question, how can this one little small dam that was built in 1909 produce this much energy for your resort when Consumers Power, who has 13 major hydro facilities across the state, are selling their dams because they're not energy efficient? It doesn't add up. But I understand that the resort wants to keep it private. They want to keep the dam producing power because then it keeps their land private because it's federally protected. But we're trying to find loopholes in it and figure out you can't mess up the river as much as you are. The river belongs to all of us in the state of Michigan. That's part of our constitutional right.
So is there public easement or access above and below that dam, or what's the stretch of privatized land that is encompassed kind of with that being there on the river?
Pull up your Onyx app and look at it. No, there is well, and this becomes the tricky part of the situation. 2019, there was an old gristmill dam in Boyne Falls that failed during spring break. Because a lot of people don't realize this, but when you live in a small mountain valley and a resort builds a lot of snow, they're also adding a lot more precipitation to that small ecosystem or that small microclimate, if you will. I mean, they're adding an additional 230 inches of hard packed snow into an already 200-inch system, right?
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah.
It's gotta melt and go somewhere at some point in time. And it all happens when you have a couple of 60, 65 degree days with rain, and an old gristmill washed out a few years ago, and all of that sediment dumped down into the Boyne Falls pond. And Boyne Falls has an old dam underneath 75 that comes into Boyne Falls that sees between 7,000 and 8,000 vehicles a day in the summertime. And if that dam washes out, and it's not the dam structure that doesn't get a passing grade. Well, the dam is old and it hasn't been maintained very well. So it's not a danger, but it's not in the best shape. But what would happen is all that sediment that moved down into the pond below is now pushing water to the outside of the cement structure. So what it's going to do is push underneath the sediment, not subluxation, but when the ground gets a little bit squiggly, like when you're walking on quicksand,
yeah,
that will push all the sand right through the bottom. And if that washes out, that'll wash out 75, which will stop a lot of vehicle traffic coming into Boyne City. And then you're going to have a huge, I don't want to call it a tidal wave. It's called a hydraulic wave, hydraulic head. When that comes down, it could do a lot of damage to the next set of bridges or a next structure,
Well, that hydraulic head is what happened when Sanford broke, right? And then that came down through Midland, and then it popped the next dam in line, and it just kind of kept cascading.
Exactly. Liquefaction. The word I'm looking for is liquefaction. When water integrates in between the solid particulate, and all of a sudden that particulate's floating because there's so many water molecules around each particle of sand that it's not stable. And that's what happened at Sanford Dam. It pushed out underneath. People think that it overtopped the dam. It didn't. It pushed out underneath it.
So kind of like a dog door. It swung the bottom out from under itself, and then and then rush. Okay, yes. I didn't know that either.
Yep. And the tricky thing is, a lot of these dams were built 1910 to 1930. What kind of heavy machinery do we have back then? What kind of, who was the engineer on
what the lifespan was supposed to be of those two?
Well,
obviously not forever.
50 or 60 years is usually tops. But the cement that they used their cement was it was super heavy. It was really tough. So a lot of these newer dams have been rebuilt on older structures that we don't know what's underneath them. You know what I mean?
Huh.
That's what happened with the Brown Bridge in Traverse City. There was a buried penstock dam, and when they accidentally hit that buried penstock dam, that's when everything just like opened up. You know, it's like when you make a little pond on a beach and a little bit of water's coming out, and all of a sudden you just take a big scoop and it just floods out. That was what happened at Brown Bridge.
Jeez.
So we're due for some updates, is what I'm hearing.
We are due for some updates, or, you know, if a resort is saying they want to be one of the most green, eco-friendly, zero carbon, whatever by 2030, then, hey, let's open up the river and make the river green. Let the river flow.
What's the call to action you'd want to put out there for anybody who's passionate about this topic, about that area, or even just about dams in general? Is there somewhere they can go to get more information and lend to this effort?
I did start a petition at Move On, remove the license. I'm not looking at removing a dam, but we need to drain and assess the reservoir above to see how much damage has been done, and to see what height that pond should be at in regulation to the structure that is there. And I don't know the right answer. We are not. Every dam has to be individually analyzed. There is no one answer for all dam structures, you know. So we need to be careful about that. And we've got 2,000 dams in the state of Michigan that many of them are not under the federal, you know, they're not licensed under FERC. They're not making any power. So there's a lot of smaller structures out there that we have no idea what state or condition they're in. And with the work that we see different groups like Conservation Resource Alliance, and they went
CRA,
through, they went through the Maple River and they took out all the undersized culverts. We helped them with Lake Kathleen. That dam removal was a huge project, but they banded together with the tribe, Huron Pines, a whole bunch of the Fry Foundation, the Mott Foundation, the Off-Field Foundation. So many different groups came together to make that happen. And that river today is an amazing, beautiful river like it was, you know, before man, 200 years ago. We had the same situation with the Song of the Morning Dove Ranch over on the Pigeon when their facility, their dam failed. And I know Mr. Walters was a big advocate of working that out with Michigan Trout Unlimited. But now the yoga retreat camp that's over there, they were very adamant about the removal of the dam because it was the reflection pond. It was their place of peace and serenity. And now they look at it and they think the river is singing the song it was supposed to sing, and it's more beautiful. There's a lot more nature. There's a lot of wildflowers. Everything's growing, and it's a different kind of serenity. I think we are finally coming to this age in 2025 where we need to look at things through a different lens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming most of those were built during, you know, the early 1900s, when, just like out west, when people needed work and these big infrastructure projects were going on and we were trying to get things up and running. And now, as we've come to this new age, it is good to hear that there's groups out there that are advocating for a new way to look at things, advocating for change, and really getting back to a more natural landscape where these habitats and species and you know, all the things that we like to pursue can be back to what they've known for centuries before we came and put some of these structures up, it seems like.
Correct. There's a great book, Four Fishes, is it the Four Fishes by Greenberg, and he writes about how all the dams along the East Coast were the first instance that we shut down the alewife population, alewife migration, killed, and then all of a sudden that had trophic effects through the rest of the ocean with other species because now salmon didn't have a bait fish. Every little thing we do seems to have some kind of impact. And it's funny too, because a lot of these old dams were either gristmill dams or, you know, small. They weren't really hydropower, but they were used to move logs and to gather logs up. But Michigan doesn't really have the gradient, you know, the amount of feet that a river drops. We floated the Manistee the other day and we dropped 12 feet in 8 hours. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
That's not a lot of feet per mile. And because that's almost 9 miles of river that we floated. But you've got to have a much steeper drop like they do out west in order for that push of water to spin those turbines to give you enough energy in return. Michigan just doesn't have the gradient to be very effective at hydropower.
And that's interesting because, you probably don't have a whole lot of, a lot of tubers and kayakers or canoers who float along the Au Sable, and they love how, easy it is. And that's a topographic issue, right? Because there isn't that gradient there. And it's also, right, it's going to have effects on how pollution flows through, how species can swim back upstream, how sediment travels down the river. And so it's good for people to know how the landscape plays into the management of these rivers as well.
100%. And when you look at a topographical map of Michigan, and you see that Gaylord is the high point of the northern lower peninsula, and when the Wisconsin glaciers receded 10 million years ago, they ebbed back north, and that's why Lake Charlevoix, Torch Lake, we have these long Burt Mullet, we have all these long, deep, skinny lakes, and all those rivers flow north, where the rest of the rivers below Gaylord either go east or west, because the spine down the middle of Michigan sends rivers either sunrise or sunset, and everything above Gaylord goes north to the small lake that it comes from, or that it dumps into. Sorry.
I actually didn't know that.
And so correct me if I'm wrong though, but like we're here in Lansing and the Grand River runs like northwest, right? Like it goes up and goes to the west out to the big lake. And so, I mean, it's wild to think that you've got a river starting southern and running northern and then heading west to the lake.
Correct. You guys are in the middle of the farm country. That's why you have bigger bucks, because they're growing a lot more corn. We have cedar bucks. You guys have corn bucks. So you have a lot
cedar swamps.
But you have a lot of agriculture down there, and it's a lot of flat land. When you drive from Grand Rapids to Lansing, you're not hitting too many hills. You could probably do that on a 10-speed bike and not have to put in a whole lot of work.
My wife did that from Garden City to Grand Rapids on Grand River Avenue the whole entire way.
Are you serious? That's cool.
Yeah. So she did that one summer, and her and a friend of her rode the whole way. And I was like, "You're crazy!" And
just
she's
for
like,
fun?
"Yeah, just for fun." And I met them over there, and they were like, "Yeah, it wasn't a bad ride at all. Lots of cornfields." I'm like, "Yeah, like it's the center of all
a lot of cornfields."
So jumping back to TU a little bit, we have a couple other topics I know you want to get to, but just give a quick view, like how many chapters in Michigan, what's some of the big projects, what's the invitation or call to action for anybody who's interested, and, not thinking, oh, I'm not the old 84-year-old guy with a pipe and a bourbon, but what's TU up to, and, where can people get involved with that organization?
They are super involved on a lot of different levels, state and federal. There used to be 3 chapters in the UP. I think they converged down to 2, the Fred Wara, and I can't think of the other one. I'd have to pull up a map. And a lot of chapters we used to have the White River down by Muskegon, and Muskegon, that got enveloped by the Schrems chapter, West Michigan. So I think there at one time were 23 chapters, and now we're down to 19. And they're mostly based by geography. Like Alan was talking about the PMTU, those guys are the only they're the only Trout Unlimited group that is watershed based, which they're a great group. They're very active. There's a lot of passion behind it. That helps a lot. Anything that if you just want to get involved, look up your local chapter and find out what night they're having a meeting, or if they're having an open fly. I know they're doing a fly tying night tonight for Miller Van Winkle up in Harbor Springs. The Kalamazoo Valley chapter has a youth camp that they bring the kids up to the Ram Center in Roscommon for a weekend, and they teach them everything from soup to nuts, tying knots, tying flies, how to cast. They actually bring them in the river on the Au Sable, and they do some river restoration habitat work, which is really cool. Every chapter's got something going on that they feel really good about. There's a lot working on the Paint River down by you guys.
Yeah, Rochester Creek area.
Yep. That's probably one of the best little trout creeks you guys have. Always get involved in a river cleanup. We try to do 2 river cleanups a year on I try to be involved as many as I can, the Bear River, the Jordan River, the Boyne River, and the Manistee, but a lot of times they schedule them on the same weekend or something's going on. So I try to get as involved as I can because it's very rewarding when you get done with a day and you look back and you can see the fruits of your labor when you take a whole bunch of crap out of the river.
Piles of trash.
Yes.
It's like the Manistee cleanup always amazes me, just how much stuff comes out of that river and how great of a job you guys do. We have an OTG event on there as well, but just how much stuff comes out of there is crazy. And you see these giant piles. You're like, man, we did a lot of good work today.
Right. And you don't realize that stuff's there, but every year as sand moves, it's moving. It's unearthing stuff or showing stuff up.
Definitely.
Well, in talking about trout, I want to switch subjects really quick because I watched a video of you trout fishing this morning that I actually didn't know you were on, but I watched the Das Boat episode with Giannis. Two of you went fly fishing, and obviously a couple guests ago we had on Mark Kenyon. So I want to ask you some of those same questions. A lot of the stuff we talked about with Kenyon is, what is it like to hunt while filming, and what's it like to have a film crew with you? What was your experience like filming that episode with MeatEater? Was it weird to have a camera crew following you? Did it make it more difficult? What was that whole experience like?
Do you want the long story or the short story?
Let's hear the long story.
So if you want to guarantee not catching a fish or not having a great day, bring an author or a camera guy in your boat. That will.
So Crater doesn't catch fish.
Yeah, oh no! See, he's lucky. He's been out there enough times that eventually a blind squirrel will get a nut. But no, he puts his time in. He definitely. We all do. I mean, that story about the stranger, that was one of our best days, and it was so perfect that because it was the river. We were due for a good day. And I get as much excitement being on the oars, watching somebody hook into a fish. I just jump up every time. Mm-hmm. That's what gets it for me. So jump back to Das Boat. Yanni was absolutely phenomenal. The film crew, super cool. R.A. Beatty. I mean, been following him and his work for years. But the backstory on it that a lot of people don't know is Miles reached out to me like the January or December before. And we had this great concept, this whole idea. I like bring a boat around. We're going to fix it up and change it to meet whatever modification to fish what you need to fish. But between that original conversation, then March 19th came and we had COVID, and the DNR shut us down from filming. They wouldn't give us any permits. They wouldn't let us camp. They wouldn't let us cook. And our original intent was to go into the Pigeon State Forest, camp on the PRC, catch a couple brook trout, cook them on a campfire, and talk about grayling and conservation and all the ethics that we need to take care of in our state. So once we got shut down on that, I had to make a quick change. And we're still going through with it because Steve's going to Grand Haven and they're going to go fish for lake trout. I'm like, okay. But the film crew, when they went to go get the boat, apparently they went on the back side of the garage and they brought the wrong boat to the original place, right? And Steve's there. He's like, this isn't the boat. He's like, well, you said the garage door behind the tractor. And they're like, you're supposed to go around the barn and go down below and get that boat. So they didn't have the right boat.
Way too nice to use.
That whole film crew was tired because they spent the next day driving back down, bringing that boat, and then coming back up. Then they drove up to Boyne City. And you have to think about this logically and from my viewpoint as a guide. I don't want to take you down the best section of river for the best hex fishing with a camera boat, our boat, and a sound boat behind us, because we're going to do nothing but piss off all the rest of the anglers that are on the river with their lights and cameras and all that stuff. So we picked secondary river. We worked on the boat all day long on Monday, and it rained and rained and rained like inches. And we got to the river and it was up a foot. There was just,
man.
And the temperatures plummeted. We had like 50-degree nights. It was everything. And I thought it was awesome how Steve did his narration and made it really snarky. And yes, it's all true.
It's good at that.
Oh, he's so good at that. But my wife watched it and she thought it was super funny. She thought it was hilarious. And we originally weren't going to work on the boat in my garage. We were going to work at Van Dam Boat Works in Boyne City, where they make these really big, nice mahogany boats. But because of COVID, they got behind on orders because stuff was getting shut down. They're like, we can't let you use our facility. So we were doing a lot of things on the fly and trying to make it happen. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So then we threw the motor back on the back and we did Lake Charlevoix and we caught some smallmouth. And I've honestly never eaten smallmouth. It was really tasty.
I was surprised you guys cleaned that.
Well, here's the flip side. What if we would have caught a 24-inch brown and we bonked it on the head and we brought it home and cooked it? I'd probably never have another guide trip again the rest of my life.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah, you're right.
So serendipitous, it all worked out the right way it was supposed to work out. But I laugh at the comments. When you go through YouTube and you look at the comments and read, this guy's like, oh, his backyard's just like my backyard, not mowed. They're staying at an Airbnb down the road from my house.
I was going to bring up that exact comment, actually.
Yes, no. I spent all of COVID rebuilding a deck on the back end of my house because we had a hot tub and a 3-tiered deck. And I rebuilt the whole thing thinking we were going to shoot the filming back there. Oh, no, we'll do it all back at the Airbnb because we have our equipment there. I'm like, okay, at least I got a new deck out of it. But you guys are going to bring up the squirrel comment. I've never eaten squirrel. I don't think I would mind because I love when Grandma used to do a rabbit, roasted rabbit. Rabbit's one of the best game meats out there in the world. But Yanni is sitting in my backyard and we're just talking about things. And I've got all these huge oak trees. And he looks up and he's like, holy crap, you have a lot of squirrels here. Do you guys ever squirrel hunt? And we've got probably 20 or 30, little black squirrels or gray squirrels running around. I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, and they're all fat too. Because they raid our bird feeders every day.
Yeah. So you didn't take one?
No, I have a 410 sitting at the cottage just in case I go out birding with the guys, with Alan and Jason and all those guys. But it was a great experience. It was definitely. There's another one that you should watch. Joe Cermelli, Joe from Hook Shots. Joe is now with MeatEater. Joe's the guy who hooked me up. Him and I did a mousing trip on the Jordan, and that was years ago. And it's funny because he absolutely bastardizes all the names of the rivers in Michigan. And when you watch it, there's I still get a little cringe but whatever. People who aren't from Michigan don't understand Michigan names. But
that's 1,000% true.
Yes, it's definitely worth watching and laughing through the whole thing because it rained that night. Lightning hit right behind us, and it was.
Oh man,
it was awesome.
I thought the episode turned out great. I'm glad you saw the comment. My favorite, I think, was you can tell Kaz is a good fisherman because of how long the grass is in his yard.
Right, not my yard. Yeah.
I thought it was a great
funny.
episode, though. It turned out really good.
Thanks. It's good to do those things because it breaks up. If I don't have, like all of us, if I don't have a project on the forefront that I'm working towards, it's like Alan, those guys, we're all busy creatures. We've got to have something that we're focusing on while we do our everyday task, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Otherwise we get lost and we start meandering.
Yeah. Or breaking sticks while you walk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When you really get bored.
So what's next?
We
got a couple things I know you wanted to try and chat on, Kaz. We're probably going to get a little short on time, but I wanted to give you the option of, you've got a couple of things here about the Upper Jordan, about grayling restocking, or even just, this whole de-extinction event. I wanted to give you the pick of which you wanted to kind of dive into on maybe the last subject of the day here as we're going to wrap up in a little bit.
Dire wolf is way too deep to get into. The grayling thing, I hope it works. I just don't know if we can bring back a species from another part of our world, put it in a river that is not the same river it was 120 years ago, because we've changed the landscape. We've changed the biochemical. We've changed so many aspects of that river or watershed in general. There wasn't At the headwaters of the Jordan, there's a couple of potato farms. Those things didn't exist when grayling did. We're doing a lot of different things to the agriculture and the landscape. And we've also added other species. Grayling did not exist when we had salmon and brown trout and steelhead. These things were all brought in later. As much as I really wish to see it happen, a grayling in Alaska gets to be its size by the sheer amount of salmon that go into the rivers and deposit eggs and return all that nutrients into the river system. There isn't anything that would grow or bloom in Alaska if it weren't for the salmon run, because everything eats salmon and they defecate in the woods. They found salmon DNA in some of the trees in the rainforest of the Tongass forest.
Really?
They have found salmon DNA in trees in the rainforest of the Tongass, which is insane. But you think about it, everything is circled around the life of the river, and the salmon go out into the ocean and they bring all this nutrient 2,000 miles inland. And if you're a bear or a raccoon or an eagle or a whatever, you eat the salmon. And the fish in the river, even rainbow trout, eat the salmon flesh. They eat all the eggs. So the grayling get big in Alaska because they're eating 20 omelets a day, right?
Okay.
High protein meals, and they get to be, let's say, an 18-inch fish is, they guess, somewhere north of 15 years old in Alaska.
Wow.
It takes a long time for them to grow. So I don't know if we have an equivalent watershed or fishery to have that kind of species rejuvenation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does the grayling thing fall under that cold water committee, the thing that I think you're going to be stepping into here soon? Is that?
I don't believe so. I think that is it originally started as a tribal thing. And it was Lake Superior State Tribal Restored Native Species Act, but the DNR has kind of spearheaded the project, is a good word. They still use their facility, but they get a lot of funds donated from private, Jose Consuelo Foundation, a lot of other, Great Lakes Energy, all that other stuff. But they're still using the facilities that the DNR have. It'd be cool to see. It would be awesome. My dad's no longer around, but we had a grayling on our cabin up in Canada mounted. It was one of those really old, like the fins are falling off mounts. Would it be cool to catch a grayling in the state of Michigan where they once were native? Yes, very cool. Would I get a whole lot of clients that will rebook numerous trips to try to catch a grayling? Doubtful. So It's going to be one of those things like catching a bluegill. They went extinct for a reason, right? We caught them all. And we took away their habitat. I mean, they didn't see, when they were catching them, they didn't see like a slow diminish of size. They were 20 inches, then all of a sudden they were gone. We just completely caught out their reproductive stock.
Man, well,
isn't that crazy?
It is
crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it's good information to know, though.
Yeah.
It's always interesting stuff. Your taxidermy in Canada sounds like all the stuff we have here in the office.
Right,
all the stuff that we have is all donated and 40 years old, and fins are falling apart. So we can relate on that.
Yep.
Well, to kind of wrap it up, I mean, trout opener's coming up, and you've got a fly fishing clinic. Do you want to plug that a little bit?
Oh, yes. My buddy John Chismadia from Kalamazoo chapter said that we should do a August 1st and 2nd. We're going to do like a let's get your feet wet, kind of like an on the ground kind of deal. Anybody who's interested in learning the ins and outs of fly fishing, we're going to have a weekend camp on the Manistee. We're not limiting the number because I can probably get a couple more guides, but that time of the year, there aren't a whole lot of hatches going on except for the trico hatch. So we can step in the river in the morning and catch a few tricos. We're going to turn over some rocks, show everybody what the different bugs are, teach them how to line up a line, leader, rod setup, all that stuff. The basic stuff that you're almost too embarrassed to ask, but it's also whenever you go on a guide trip with a guide, they're like, oh, I never thought of that. So we just want to show people the small things that make it more enjoyable and exciting. Stuff you can't get on YouTube. Awesome. Yeah.
That's August 1st and 2nd, you said?
August 1st and 2nd. Yes. You can email me or give me a call.
Yeah, I'll be at the West Grand Rapids, Allendale KOA. I might have to sneak up there with my kids for the day and come see you.
Sounds good. Or we'll get you on the river.
Yeah, we can do both. We have
We
fun summer
will.
ahead of us, right?
We will.
Are you going to be posting about the fly fishing clinic? Because we'll make sure to share it if you do.
Yeah, I'll send you a page.
Perfect.
Awesome, man.
Okay, cool. Well, that about wraps it up. Anything else you want to quickly go over before we head into some quick housekeeping items?
Yeah, let's bring back the trout stamp.
Oh, interesting. Did you write a resolution for MUCC to get to work on that?
I think I could do that. I think
That's
a lot
what
of
we're
people,
here for.
I mean, shoot, that's exactly what we're here for. I didn't even think about that, but yes, I think a lot of people would be up for that.
Yeah, Justin can help you with the resolution. We'll get it through the policy board, and maybe it'll be at convention next year. Let's see.
Sounds good.
All right. Awesome. Well, Kaz, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Me
Yes,
too.
sir.
I'm running low on storage apparently, so I'm going to let you guys go.
Awesome, Kaz. We'll be in touch soon, man.
Yep. Thanks
Sounds
for coming
good.
on.
Thank you.
And the Michigan Outdoors podcast is proud to partner with GK World Championship Calls. As a proud 100% Michigan-based company, GK has built a reputation for delivering customer service that is second to none. With some of the most accomplished callers in the world, they have been successful in winning every major title on the goose calling circuit. GK is also proud to be a sponsor of numerous hunting organizations all over North America that make it a priority to get the young men and women involved in the great sport of waterfowling. They strive to educate the youth on the importance of conservation, safety, and respect for the sport. MUCC members receive 20% off their order with our exclusive discount code found in your MUCC member portal. And to wrap it up, we have two quick little housekeeping updates for events coming up.
Yeah. So again, as I said at the top of the show, we had a great event in Byron Center. Thanks to Rob Miller and his whole crew over there for Camo and Conservation. We're looking at north of $100,000 gross fundraising. So huge success for a second year event. And coming up next in the lineup is June 13th on the west side at Caledonia Sportsman's Club. We have our West Side Charity Shoot. You're going to get 50 clays, light breakfast, lunch. We have some silent auction, some raffles, awards for Top Gun and Best Team. Teams of 6. We have 3 different flights of shooters throughout the day. You can come by yourself. You can come with a whole team. You can do sponsorships that get you a complimentary team with your sponsorship. So check out mucc.org/shoot. Both the East Side and West Side Charity Shooters up there now. Registration is open. And then in July, we have the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing. Huge success last year. We have 144 slots open. We're going to fill the course this year, Friday, July 25th at West Branch Country Club, going back to the same place as last year. Beautiful club, beautiful clubhouse, great meal after the event is over. Tons of raffle prizes, all kinds of cool stuff. Celebrity shot on the hole, all kinds of cool things you can do. So you can come out and swing with us for golf. And then after that, in August, a little ways out, but we do have our East Side Charity Shoot in August 8th at Multi Lakes Conservation Association in Commerce Township, so southeast side of Michigan. So check it out, mucc.org/events. All of our events are open. All of our events are taking registrations and sponsorships. So we really want to see you guys out there. Come enjoy a good time with us and come meet the staff, meet all of our guests. We'll have some of our guests from the podcast at these events as well. And we look forward to seeing you out there.
All right. That wraps it up for us. Huge thank you to Brian Kozminski for coming on. Check him out at truenorthtrout.com. Book a trip with him. You won't regret it. It's going to be an amazing experience. And you can also find him on social media at truenorthtrout as well. So that wraps it up for us for episode 16. We will see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.